Bounty hunting is a complicated profession. Don't you agree?
The CINIKRADIO podcast.
Hi, I'm Chad L. Coleman, Tyrese from The Walking Dead, and Cuddy from The Wire, and you are listening to the Cinik Radio podcast. Here your host, Cinik.
Hey, the facts are Spider-Man belongs in the MCU. Sony was delusional thinking they didn't need Marvel, and now he's back. And we, the fans, are 100% proudly responsible for that.
Igrihe.
As long as DC wants to make dark and gritty movies, they're going to lag behind Marvel in every category.
And Ryan.
Batman vs. Superman is objectively better than Infinity War.
IG, did we just forget Kim?
You guys completely suck.
This is the greatest show of all time.
This is episode 130 of the Cinik Radio podcast, and I'm your host, Cinik. And joining me, as always, my team of krill farmers, Igrihe and Ryan. Kim isn't with us this week as she's taking a jagged little day off to stand in line for her Alanis Morissette tickets. On this week's show, we are covering two action-packed episodes of The Mandalorian. We're breaking down episode 4, Sanctuary, and episode 5, The Gunslinger, and that all starts now. IG, we cut to a happy little village on a happy little Blackwood planet where the locals are just farming krill. Can you sense that their day is about to get fucked and go bad from worse in short order?
Well, this is an adventure show. This is The Mandalorian. Like, they aren't going to show these guys, like, and the youngest one becomes the Mandalorian. That's not what this is, right? We've already seen the Mandalorian as a youngling, so this isn't him. So you know something bad's going to happen, and it's going to happen. And they can't do anything about it. It's a typical setup, right? It's the whole Western theme. It just fits, right? You have these people that aren't hurting anybody. They're farming the land, living peacefully. They're beatniks. And somebody's going to come and stormtroop all over their butts.
You could just sense it. I mean, it'd be in Star Wars and, you know, bad things happen to good people all the time. It's kind of like the real world, or if you're walking around the streets of Chicago, but you could just sense that they were just too happy farming these shrimp and something bad was about to happen to them in short order. Ryan, during the invasion, Omar and her daughter hid under a basket in the water to escape detection from basically their day going much, much worse. The boss mob kind of walks in, looks around, and they're doing a very Acme thing under the basket in the water. Did you think that they were about to get caught? It just screamed that, hey, we're hiding under here, didn't it?
I guess so, but I never really thought that. It seemed like, you know, look, I love the show, but it seemed like a fairly straightforward way for them to survive, but then be the people that, you know, Mando has to protect later on. So I was never really concerned for their well-being. And in fact, as silly as it was, I was like, okay, kind of clever, makes sense, and it works. And I think that once they were there, I figured, yeah, they'd survive, but, you know, their you know, land would be decimated or they'd lose all their stuff. And then, you know, it set the stage for a nice little story of the Mandalorian saving the day.
It just seemed like it was from the Acme Basket Company. I didn't like the move at all. Although I guess in a pinch, it's going to work. Any bad guy worth the snuff is going to kick the basket over and see that they're hiding under there. It just bothered me in so many ways.
They're not real bad guys, though. They're standard guys that it's like, you know, we're going to go. It's kind of like the Robin Hood story, right? We're going to go take from these guys. We're the sheriff of Nottingham. We're not all that smart, but they're weak. We're strong. We're going to go take their food so we don't have to get our own food. They're not real bad guys. They're not Imperials. They're not somebody strong. They're not Sith. They're just stronger than these farmers that aren't strong.
You know, that was my take, was that they were there to steal some food, easy, you know, kind of an easy bounty, but it didn't seem like they were necessarily out there to like kill and murder people and hunt people down. Because if that was the case, I mean, they would have decimated the village, and whether or not they survived that would have been a bit of a different story. It was fine because I don't think they were actively searching, you know, to seek out and like.
Well, it's killing your food source, right? You know, you kill them, and now where do you get your freely farmed shrimp from?
Yeah, but at the same time, you guys are saying that they're not smart enough to be bad guys.
Yeah. Basically, not real bad guys.
Well, but I don't think they were searching for people. Like, I don't think they were searching for people that were hiding. They were just going to take their bounty and leave. So I feel like if they spent the next, you know, few hours like seeking people out and killing people, that'd be one thing, but it seemed like they were in and out. It was pretty quick. You know, it's almost like they just didn't care enough to look.
IG, as a father, do you feel the Mandalorian's pain as the baby will not stop touching things in the cockpit? And have you ever told your kid specifically not to do something and they stare you dead in the eye and just reach up and do it right in front of you just to see your reaction?
Oh my God, that's parenthood in a nutshell. Like, this kid hits so many like heartstring notes because you feel exactly what he's feeling. It's like, didn't I just tell you not to do that? Or, no, we're not listening to that radio station. Like, what? We'll turn this car around. He totally had, like, without seeing his face, that was almost what he was saying. Like, I'm going to take you back and give you to that cloner guy. You're pushing my last nerve, kid. But he is actively acting like a parent with this kid, and he is definitely emotionally invested.
Somebody won the internet this week because they put that scene to Get Low by Little John. So every time he would flip the switch, Little John would start playing. We'll throw the link somewhere on our social media, but it was nothing less than hilarious. Ryan, don't you wish that they would tell us a little bit more about the bounty fobs? I mean, could they let us know how they work? Is there a range? How far do they track? And do you think the Djarin, being a bounty hunter himself, would know that basically nowhere in the galaxy is safe?
How does it work? Is it tied to him? Is it tied to, movement? Like, it really doesn't make any sense. And I would hope that they have something set up and it's not one of those things where it's just like, they're Star Wars fans. They'll just deal with it, which I'm kind of 50-50 at this point. But yeah, I do hope that there's some science, behind it or some explanation for how those fobs work, because, at the end of the day, like, I'm okay with this being, going on for a while, but I don't want the whole show to just be constantly them being chased down. Like, at some point they've got to find a way to escape or lay low for a little while. At
some point the show jumps the shark. If there's 9,000 bounty hunters and he beats each and every one, like, eventually somebody's going to get the drop on you, I would think. And I hope it's Bill Burr. How great would it be if Bill Burr killed the baby Yoda? People would never forgive him.
That would be the end of Bill Burr. There would be no more. Like, can you imagine getting killed by a fictional character? Your whole career is all over because everybody's mad that you killed a fictional character. That's a terrible thing, but people's careers have died for less.
Something tells me in his circles it would only make him more popular. I'm just saying. IG, Baby Yoda refuses to stay in the ship, and based on how slow he walks, could you see that there might be some backpack action a la The Empire Strikes Back for this little guy in the future?
There's some truth to that he does not move very slow when everybody's looking, but somehow, wherever the Mandalorian goes, there comes the Baby Yoda. He just shows up. So I'm wondering if there's a little of backpack action a la Empire mixed with a little Pepe Le Pew, just, hello, my dear, just showing up wherever, it's like, what are you guys doing? And that's all I can think whenever he shows up. Like he was that Kermit the Frog meme, sipping tea, just he's fighting with Cara Dune. And where did he come from? How did he get there? And he had somebody watching him. And he got there.
He's a slippery little fellow. We'll give him that. I mean, adults are paying attention to him, and he still manages to just kind of wander off. Ryan, in a very why can't we be friends moment, we get the Mandalorian versus Cara Dune as they square off almost at first sight. The former Rebel shock trooper turned MMA fighter. Would you have considered their fight a draw? And did you like Gina Carano in this role?
Yeah, I like her in this role. I mean, I'm curious as to, like, it's interesting how they sold the show, because I thought she would be a series regular, like he'd have kind of a team. I wonder if this is like a one and done type of thing, or if she's done for the season, or if he brings her back, or what's going to happen. But I definitely like her in the role. I mean, she's legitimately tough. She looks the part, and I think her acting is fine, but I think it's fine for that role. Yeah, I think their fight was a bit of a draw, but often when you have a situation where there's a male versus female, you suspend disbelief a little bit, especially if the guy is much bigger. But in this case, like, she's legitimately tough. She legitimately knows how to throw punches, even though she was throwing punches with her fist at a Beskar helmet. It still looked legitimate. The fight moves look legit because she's a legitimate fighter. If you're going to cast somebody for that kind of a role and make them legit, she's it. And I totally could buy that. She in real life, I'm sure she could whip Pedro Pascal's ass. So in this type of situation, it's perfectly cast.
And that last punch, though, that knocked him on the ground, like, I'm sorry, she clearly kicked his butt.
Not only that, I would have liked to see her in today's MMA. Like, she bloomed 10 years too early, because she was a pioneer. She was the first well-known female fighter in the sport, and became the face of women's MMA. But I would have liked to see if she had the training that, like, Holly Holm has now, what she would have became, because she is a scary individual. That is one woman that I would not backtalk to on a regular basis. IG, I don't know if you caught it or not, but there was a great little callback to The Matrix as they rolled around on the ground and both ended up with their guns pointing directly at each other's head, which it was also how Neo and Agent Smith's fight kind of ended. Did you notice that at all?
I noticed that completely. And that's the thing. There's so many callbacks for so many different genres of movies. and so many different individual movies that if you are a fan of just about anything, eventually it seems like something's going to show up here just to drag you in. And I really do like that about this. This is Star Wars for everyone. Star Wars for the deep fans, Star Wars for the flighty fans, Star Wars for people that don't know anything about Star Wars. And that just makes this even better. And every week that goes by, I just get more and more invested in this show.
Well, let me ask you this, Ryan. The Crow farmers need the help and they approach the bounty hunter. As this dangerous-looking individual lone rider rides into town, and the townsfolk naturally think that he should just come and save them for whatever money they can scrape together, trope and done to death. Or was it a new take on it?
It definitely wasn't a new take on it. But at the same time, I don't think it's necessarily done to death. I think with anything, it's not done to death in Star Wars. We're expecting this type of a space Western, especially when it comes to The Mandalorian. And what I like about this episode and what they're able to do with it is, even though you have like Baby Yoda's kind of taken over and you've got like the cuteness and the fun that comes with that, they're still able to kind of weave in these stories that were what we were expecting. So we did expect like a gunslinger. We did expect a guy who was going to kind of be morally gray, but start to, make decisions to actually help people instead of just getting a bounty, or kind of ostensibly for the bounty, but really it's because he's becoming or changing. So I like that we're getting these types of stories, which is what we expected, and that the cuteness of Baby Yoda hasn't taken away so much that we can't get this. So yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a trope, it's overdone, but they did it so well that there's no point in this story or in the episode where I'm thinking, oh, we've seen this a million times.
IG, you're kind of like me. One more case of the feels and we're going to be binge watching This Is Us together and knitting sweaters. But were you digging the Mando love interest with O'Mara?
Yeah, honestly, I was, because if we have shows like this without actual human connection and interaction, it just becomes, a cartoon. And there needs to be something deeper to get us to believe that he's real. Otherwise, he's just a robot and he's going to go around and carry a baby with him and shoot people. And that would be interesting for about 3 episodes and we'd be fine with it. But if they're going to continue on and really get us invested, you need to have something to invest with the character. And sometimes having that glimpse of a relationship, glimpse of normalcy is what's going to get you invested. And they aren't overplaying it. They aren't pushing it so hard like you're going to love this relationship or we're going to keep throwing it at you. It was a glimpse and then it was gone. And that just makes us feel even more deeply for poor Mando.
Well, Ryan, is she kind of fallen too fast, though? I mean, this is where the short runtime kind of hurts the blooming of the love story, because they meet. She hasn't even seen his face yet, and she's already trying to get him to kind of stay and shack up. Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think that the short episodes definitely affect the storytelling quite a bit, and then there's a lot more left to the imagination. So there's a lot more where we have to kind of fill in the blanks. But, that being said, there are performances where you can do a lot in a very short period of time. And I think she did. Like, I think that they were really able to build that relationship between them in that little bit of time that they had. And again, great acting in a mask again, for him, just the little kind of cracks in his voice throughout, in some of those moments. I believe that she was really into him. Yeah, we could have gotten more time, but at the same time, maybe not, maybe we didn't need it. And I think that there was enough chemistry there that really came through, that it kind of reminded me of like the, Carsey, if we go to Game of Thrones, where there's a character who had very little screen time, but made every bit of it and was very memorable and present, and you really felt the performance. And I felt this was the same way, maybe not quite as much, but still felt like, she was given a little bit to work with. She was only in it for, a little bit, but I believed it. And I believe the relationship. And if she comes back, or if there's something, season 5, when the show ends, that he ends up back on that planet with her and settles down, I could believe that, because I did believe the chemistry with them. Like I said, I felt like it was a little rushed, but I agree with you. If it ends up with that, or it ends up some sort of John Wick-like revenge story where he's going back to kind of avenge her death, then I think the payoff is there. But if we never see her again, I think it's just kind of a wasted character. IG, multiple discussions about will he or won't he take the helmet off. Are we getting closer to seeing Pedro Pascal, or will Ryan and the terrorists win?
I think at some point, probably episode 7, we're going to have a glimpse. Now, I don't know if it's going to be around anyone else or if it's going to be maybe around the child, like giving him a trustworthy thing. Because I don't believe the child maybe has even seen him without the mask on. I think it's going to happen. The internet will win and Ryan will go down crying, and it's okay. But I don't think that's going to become the new norm where the mask starts to come off every week. I think it's still going to remain kind of a rare, kind of a special, kind of a treat. So I think Ryan has some right in what he's saying, but if he's got the mask on exclusively all the time, I think that's too much. I think it needs to be on more than not, but there needs to be some times when it's apt to take it off.
I think that they're playing it perfectly for me. I think that they've made it a situation where it's going to mean something when the mask comes off. So I don't mind that the mask comes off at all. I just think that, yeah, like it when it comes off, it needs to mean something and it needs to have, weight. And I think they've done a great job of that because they brought it up and, he took the mask off moment. So it will happen. And I love that they're building to that, but I also love that I was proven right. His performance has been great and he hasn't taken the mask off once. So
to further what I was just saying, say we run 5 seasons and we don't get to see him until he does return to that planet to be with her. And then he takes the helmet off for the first time and that ends the show. That would be pretty damn cool and worth the payoff in my book. Ryan, that awkward moment where you agree to help someone move only to find out that they only have antique, super heavy furniture and it's a 6-story walk up. Kara and Mando find out that not only are they fighting a force of bad guys, but they also have an AT-ST. They thank the villagers, but it's a hard no. But are we forgetting that you have a pretty apt gunship just parked down the river a few miles?
I don't know what to make of it. Like I didn't buy that all that much. It's like they were committed. They were going to do it. But yeah, why not use the ship? Maybe it's not as powerful as it looks. I don't know. But it was strange that he didn't. Yeah, just get on your gunship and you can take them out. I would think fairly easily if a bunch of Ewoks could do it with primitive weapons.
I don't know. I think the deal with that is, if you start using your ship, then that draws more attention. And if you draw more attention and you're trying to hide, you need to make it look like in this aspect that the villagers did it themselves. They developed a plan with limited technology to defeat the marauders that were attacking them. If you show that you're the ones doing it and you bring in superior firepower and know-how and everything else and show that we have our own technology to beat their technology with, you draw the ire and the eyes of anybody in the area, and then the messages go out and you get found more easily. So I think that's what they were trying to accomplish. That, and if you just go out and kill them yourself and then come back, then the next thing's going to come and attack them, and the next thing and the next and the next thing. You need to make them seem like they're strong enough to defend their own stuff to the community, to the planet, so that maybe they'll just be left alone to farm their krill and play their stupid soccer game.
IG, after the obligatory push it to the limit training montage, the fight is on. It's pretty well choreographed. It goes really well until the AT-ST attacks. But much like the love story, no matter how good it was, we only got about a minute and a half worth of fight before it came to a conclusion and we got the AT-ST to step in a hole. I mean, could we have gotten more out of that scene?
Yeah, they could have done a lot more with that, but I think that they were just trying to push past and get to the story, right? And the story is there's going to be loss and Mando has to keep on the move, and that's fine. I'm okay with it. I would have liked more action, just like I do all the time, but they're pushing money at this series, and that's great. And I think they're not holding back, but there's still a limit to what they can do. This isn't, the next actual Star Wars movie that has $1 billion budget. They still have, a couple million an episode, and there's limited resources, especially when you're putting huge CGI AT-STs on the screen. You need to conserve money where you can. It was cool to watch, but yeah, 2 minutes is too short. And it was probably more like 5, but it flew by really fast. There was a lot of stuff happening, and it happened all too fast, and it's disappointing. But it didn't really hurt my rating on the episode either, because the episode was still great.
Let's talk about the AT-ST, IG. Do you think it was an accurate representation as far as the original trilogy? Or do you think they pumped it up a bit too much to make it like a boss mob in a video game, giving it red eyes? And visually, Did it scare the bejesus out of you?
Oh, it absolutely scared the bejesus out of me. I think the red eyes was just some adornments the new Marauders may have done to it, because they also put some paint on it that if you really looked, you could see, but like because it was dark every time they were using it, it was pretty hard to see. It was just really well done. And again, one of those things that the Uber fans like us are like, ooh, ATST, and the casual fan is like, ooh, that's a cool looking thing. So I think even the guns on the sides were different, but it was just really cool to see and a great callback to earlier episodes. And I do like that they didn't get taken down as easily as Ewoks just rolling some logs at it. That it shows that, you know, it should be a little bit more formidable of a machine.
You're right. They got it to step in a hole rather than to trip on a log. It was great. Ryan, this could be one of the most interesting questions of the series. The collapse of the Empire would lead to a lot of dangerous tech and weaponry in the wrong hands, right?
Yeah, of course. And it's interesting, like kind of them dropping all these little bits of world building into it without really world building. And I think it's both good and bad, because I think obviously you get a lot of other ancillary materials and kind of expanded universe type stories that you can use to then build this world, and it's really interesting. Then that forces the viewers to if they, which I guess is good. One of the good things about the world is that you can go and seek out more information, but it's what's a little frustrating is they throw out all these little nuggets of things that are going on in that universe, but the episodes are so short that there's no way that they can tackle all this stuff. And so even now, like we've got 3 episodes left, and there's a million things that I feel like we need to see and hear, and it makes it so there's really not enough time to explore what's going on in the world. And maybe that's one of the only frustrating things about the show is that we get these little nuggets of this world that I'd love to see developed, but we're not going to get it. And maybe we'll get bits and pieces in books here and there, but I love what the show is doing, and I'd love to see more of it in the show if we were getting a proper 45, 50 minute episodes every week.
I really would like to see some Game of Thrones type storytelling where we do get to see other parts of the universe even in the same episode. That would be kind of neat. My fear is that if the Baby Yoda storyline goes beyond season 1, that they're going to do a time jump, and I absolutely do not want that, to make him a little bit older and, kind of like a baby Groot type deal. I hope they don't do that. But IG, the fight was won. The Krill people are celebrating, and the Mando actually floats the idea of leaving Baby Yoda on the planet with Omar and her daughter until a bounty hunter takes his shot. But Kara puts him down before he gets a chance to do it. Your thoughts on the episode and your rating?
I like the episode. I think it was marginally weaker than previous episodes in some ways, but a little bit stronger in others. Like it gave us more of an emotional side of the Mandalorian, which I really do enjoy. It always, Baby Yoda's the best. I shared a meme with our private chat that said I would burn Baby Groot to keep Baby Yoda warm. Baby Yoda is winning in all possible ways. And yeah, I liked the episode quite a bit. I would have liked a little more action. I think Cara Dune is awesome, and if she doesn't show up again in this season, I'm going to be a little disappointed. But if she doesn't show up at all in the series ever again, I'm going to be even more disappointed. Like, I understand that they're doing a lot of setup and introductions of people in this season that could possibly carry on to further seasons. And I'm okay with that. But I'm thinking that some of these people are going to end up as a crew doing something, more akin to Han Solo and everything. Like I said on the last podcast, he's not so much just a bounty hunter anymore. He's not so much just a bounty hunter anymore. He's a scoundrel. And Star Wars loves a scoundrel. And as we all do, Han Solo is one of the most beloved Star Wars characters of all time. So this episode, I'm probably going to give a 9. I really did enjoy it, but I think it was a little less than the last episode.
I really enjoyed this episode. Obviously, the Baby Yoda, you kind of have to get it out of the way first. I love that every episode there's something cute and adorable about him. The scene trying to press the buttons was hilarious and adorable, and the scene with them drinking the soup, watching them fight again is adorable. But I also like though that they're able to pull back with him a little bit and then focus on a story, and I think the story was good. Yeah, it was a trope and a cliche and something we've seen a million times, but they did a great job with it. Kudos to them for just getting the right directors and the right writers in place for this, because even with the limited time that we get, it's just phenomenal storytelling, and it really gets you emotionally involved and engaged. And I think all the performances have been great. And yeah, this episode was great too. So, I give it, maybe not a 9, but I give it an 8.5, a solid 8.5. It was really entertaining, really fun, very rewatchable. And again, helps to build the world.
Out of the 4 episodes so far, this has been the lesser one to me. So it's a 6.5 right off the bat. And as much as I love the show, as much as I love Gina Carano as a shock trooper, I thought the story has been worn down to a nub countless times. It's been done over and over again. I did enjoy the battle. And if you really want to wow me, where are the AT-ATs? Give me an AT-AT. Don't give me a vehicle that can be taken down by a host of Build-A-Bears. All right, guys, we were off last week, so we're playing catch up. So let's talk about episode 5, The Gunslinger. The episode opens with a bit of a space battle with the Razor Crest taking some damage, but winning the day by pulling a sweet Maverick move by stamping on the brakes and letting its opponent fly right by. Ryan, does nothing take you from cool to not cool as quickly as saying somebody else's catchphrase, but then promptly getting killed by them?
Yeah. I guess it's funny kind of how meta and I guess self-aware the writing was in that moment. I wasn't sure if I loved it or hated it, but yeah, that was a fun scene. And again, the show is doing a great job with whatever the budget on the effects, because it was a nice little space battle. It worked really well. For a moment you're like, he's in peril, and again they do a great job with Baby Yoda looking scared, and yeah, he's able to kind of win the day and or live to fight another day.
The slamming on the brakes thing bothers me a little bit, right? Flying Leia bothered me in The Last Jedi. Slamming on the brakes when there is no air to have resistance against bothers me a little bit.
If we're going to argue the science of space battles in
I'm
Star
not
Wars,
generally, but that bothered me a little bit.
I mean, I think we just have to, as just across the board, it has some of the worst science. Space, I mean, it's just terrible. So we just kind of have to accept it. What was it? Lucas kind of, it was all based on World War II,
dogfights and John Wayne movies.
Dogfights. Yeah. And so that's the physics that apparently occurs in space. And I guess that's just the way the universe
foils
is.
For wind resistance and everything it mattered.
You're right.
You're in space, man. There's no wind. What are we doing, guys? So, in another episode that I loved, there was the one thing that really kind of irked me a little bit. Well, if you did reverse thruster, hey, I'm on board. But the foils with hey, we're going to catch some breeze. No, I'm sorry.
That's one of the things I love about The Expanse. If you watch it, the thing they get is the space battles are phenomenal because they're using real physics and the battles happen it would really, so yeah, you just kind of have to suspend your disbelief with Star Wars. It's just how it is.
IG, finally a setting that we can sink our teeth into as we're headed back to Tatooine, most notably the hive of scum and villainy, which is Mos Eisley. Were you excited about the nostalgia all over this one?
Oh my God, goosebumps rose all over my skin when they said, Mos Eisley Spaceport, go to docking bay 37 or whatever they told me. I was like, Mos Eisley, just all kinds of giddy, I was a little kid again. And that's kind of what Mandalorian's been doing. It lets me relive my childhood because I was around and watching Star Wars when they first released in 77. So this is a whole new thing for me. And then seeing Mos Eisley and he's walking through the town, I was so excited. It's just, I can't even contain how excited I was. And when I rewatched it with my wife just the other day, I'm like, look, it's Mos Eisley. She's like, yeah, huh? What? That's okay. I love it. It's fine.
Ryan, we kind of kept rolling with the unique guest stars as we had former Strangers with Candy's lead Amy Sedaris in this episode. Are you enjoying the fact in the show that they're constantly making you run back and forth to IMDb every time somebody pops up on the screen? They really are kind of keeping it unique.
Yeah, it's one of the best things about the show. And I think the popularity of it means that for future seasons, I don't think they'll have any problem. And I love that they're getting people who aren't massive, necessarily massive stars, but have, fill a certain niche or are popular enough that who they are and kind of the fan base can really get excited about. I mean, they've done a great job of that just so far, and just everybody seems to knock it out of the park. Like I can't think of a bad performance, for all these. Some of them maybe take you out of it a little bit. Like I think Horatio Sands, I loved it, but it still like doesn't quite feel like a Star Wars character. But still, I think I love that we're getting these cameos, and that when they're on the screen, they do a great job, and it seems like they're kind of all in. So I'm really loving that part of the show.
IG, is someone going to have to call the Yoda Protection Services on the Mando? I mean, he just leaves the kid everywhere. I mean, it's not like every bounty hunter in the galaxy is looking for him, right?
What is the deal, man? I mean, first of all, he's little. He's got to have he's got the floating carbonite things. I mean, if you're going to leave him, then just spitballing here, put him in the carbonite. Like, just put him in the carbonite. He'll just hang out there. He's not going to go get in trouble. Nobody's going to, like, if he's in there, he's going to think, all right, this guy's doing his job. He's bounty hunter. He's got a bounty. It's all good. Can't do nothing. But, man, he just puts him anywhere. It's like, you stay here, and then leaves. All right, you can't tell any kid, just stay here and expect they're just going to sit in that chair and be like, all right, I know I can't move. No, they're going to go, like, see what trouble they can get into. And, yeah, I'm not hiring to babysit any of my kids. I'm not going to hire him to babysit my dog, because he is just a free will he's a hippie. The Mando, I've decided, is a hippie, and he's just going to do what he wants, and the kid's going to come out, and he's going to be like, all right, well, the kid's out now, I guess. So
you heard it here first. If you can't carbonite freeze your kid, go ahead and just give him NyQuil and set him in front of the TV and go out to the bar anyway. Ryan, much like Detroit, Mos Eisley ain't what it used to be, as it's apparently almost a ghost town. Now, I know you advocated for staying off the beaten path on the show, but are you interested to see the impact of the fall of the Empire across the galaxy?
I want to. I think that's, again, one of the unfortunate parts of the show is that with 35-minute episodes, we're not going to get to really see much of that. So we'll have to fill in the gaps until, a book comes out. But what's frustrating, again, why it's frustrating is because the show is so beautiful and like so well shot, and the character design is so good, and the little nuggets we get are so cool that I want to see it on the show. I don't want to read it in a book or read it in a comic. I actually want to see how that happens in the show, and I think we could get more of that if we were getting longer episodes. So it was great to see. In this case, I think it could have gone either way with this episode. It could, because it was so Easter egg kind of heavy and it was so nostalgia heavy, but I think they did a really good job of making it, leaning into like the nostalgia and making you really feel like get the feels and the goosebumps without it, without being kind of too cynical about it.
Finding out that the Bounty Hunter Guild no longer operates on Tatooine, Mando meets Tor Calican. Did you notice the callback to where he was sitting in the exact same position he was sitting in?
Yeah, it seemed like he was trying to be cool, trying to be swagger, trying to be a scoundrel, trying to be Han Solo, and it just he didn't have the same ring to it. Like, he was trying really hard, and I don't think he hit that mark all that closely. But seeing the cantina, like, I was all kinds of excited. Now, I was hoping to see Woor in there, like, still slinging his ale, doing something, like, a little bit older, doing something else. Maybe a one-armed Ponda Baba walking around. Some of that might have been a little bit more exciting, but, that was the cantina minus the droid sensor as they went in. I was excited.
Yeah, I just liked the fact that they put him in the same booth as Han, the same booth he killed Greedo in the same position. I thought he looked very slick. But Ryan, Djarin was in a tough spot. Can he afford to trust anybody that has anything to do with the guild at this point, especially if he looks like the proprietor of Fashionable Mail?
Yeah, it does seem strange that he seems to be a little too trusting and almost naive. And I guess maybe he's just young. I think going into the season, we kind of expect him to be seasoned and experienced, but I think he just maybe isn't. And maybe that's part of his personality that needs to be developed. And maybe that's also why he doesn't have the hard edge, and maybe why he made the morally right decision at the expense of his being a part of the guild. So yeah, it was strange that he seemed to be a little too trusting of him, and a little, for somebody who gave up everything to save Baby Yoda, doesn't seem to get that he probably needs to be taking a little bit better care of Baby Yoda as well.
Yeah, that kid looks like he wants to beat a rain check into you in the most uncomfortable spot. IG, as a former Star Wars Galaxy player, being on Tat, riding swoop bikes across the Dune Sea, and then you encountered Tuskens. On top of the nostalgia, I mean, did you want to see them throw down with the Tuskens? Not just sit there and sign to them?
No, I wanted to see some crazy Tusken fight with some Terrakasi moves and some vibro knuckles and have somebody take a shot to the head. Like, I don't know. Like, we played Star Wars Galaxies for a few years, and like Tusken Raiders on Tatooine were a force to be reckoned with. They were not weak in any stretch of the imagination. And I don't believe that any view that we've had of them thus far that they're as weak or skittish as we've been shown. So I was hoping for a little bit more, but at the same time, this is just kind of like The Searchers from John Wayne, one of his last movies, where he's trying to go find somebody and do something across some land that belongs to the natives. And he negotiates passage through their land and everything without being able to actually speak their language. And it's another callback to another Western, to another time. And I'm okay with it. Like, they're doing some really cool things. It would have been cooler to see the Tuskens doing some stuff, but the fact that they were there and scared the bejesus out of this young wannabe bounty hunter, like, that worked for me too.
Their bounty seems to be pretty fierce. Fennec Shad, who turns out to be none other than Wing Ni Wan from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I mean, did you respect her game with the setup, with the sniper rifle, with the putting the dead bounty hunter to kind of draw their attention? I mean, does it feel like the stakes are raising every single episode?
Yes and no. I think she was great in a little bit that we got, of her. And, I think she, obviously was like a formidable foe, but for Mando to be afraid of her right off the bat and to be like, initially like, yeah, I'm not, it's okay. You deal with that. I'm okay. As tough as he is and what he's been through so far, it was still fairly easy for them to take her down. I wish there was a better way to make her look a little bit stronger without being kind of captured so easily, and it would have been different if maybe she knew who he was and that he had the child and that she let herself get captured in order to work out a deal, but it doesn't seem like that was it. So I think she's great. And I think it looks like, I don't think she's dead. So I think she'll be back and maybe she can kind of redeem herself. But yeah, I feel like for what his reaction to her was so much that it was too easy for them to take her down. Like, that just seemed like she should have been able to anticipate that and that she didn't, and that they got her, so easily. Just, it's like did a little bit of a disservice to the character and what they had set up so quickly.
IG, I mean, she wasn't just taken down. I mean, they used trickery, they used numbers. Was it possible if Toro or Djarin went after Fennec by themselves that she might have killed either one?
I think it's highly possible that Toro, for sure, he'd have been done. Just like the Mando said, I think Mando's had enough experience in doing some of this stuff that he's got a shot with or without her. I think that some of the stuff with having to drag this kid along with him probably slowed down the journey. But, if it's his bounty and he's got the fob and all the information and you need something to get paid, then sometimes you have to work with an amateur to get professional level stuff done. And that's unfortunate when you're among the top professionals. I don't know. I think that he'd have had a shot on his own, but I kind of like bringing in somebody else because it shows that this character is not above accepting help. And he's done that over and over again. Kuil, he went to multiple times, and he doesn't ham fist around and go, I work alone and I don't need anybody else. Like, he freely accepts help everywhere. Makes him a much more complex character, which I really do enjoy.
Ryan, based on the speed of the dewback that we saw on screen and the chances that you were going to be double crossed and him just taking off with her in the speeder, or, what had happened, maybe walking was a better idea, you think, possibly?
Probably. But I guess who knows how far they traveled and how much energy it would take. His armor's pretty heavy. But yeah, there's just that part of me that thought, well, it must have taken him hours, if not more, to get there. Why didn't he just take Baby Yoda and go get his bounty? I mean, I guess that the Mando was worth it to something, but it just was weird to me. Yeah, it was a little odd for storytelling for me. I just figured like, why not call backup, or why not, there's so many other things he should have done. So yeah, I was like nervous with all that time. And so there's just a bit of a, I don't know, plot issue for me that it took so long for him to get there, and that there wasn't a better plan or more people. So that whole sequence kind of bugged me a little bit.
IG, bigger crime to you? Toro killing Melinda May from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or pointing a blaster at Baby Yoda?
Oh, Baby Yoda, 100%. At that point, anything that happens to you, you deserved. You don't point a blaster at the Baby Yoda. You don't speak ill will. You don't say harsh words in his presence. I'm sorry. Like, you need to respect the Baby Yoda. And anyone that crosses him in any kind of way, like if you're not bringing him like idols and gold and frankincense and myrrh and treating him as the next king, and maybe, we're doing this wrong. And I digress a little bit because I know I'm messing with Christianity a little bit, but I don't mean it that way. But yeah, the kid is as pure a thing as we've seen in Star Wars as far as I'm concerned. And to have anyone try and use it as leverage, yeah, you deserve anything that happens to you at that point.
Didn't you just advocate carbon freezing it every time you left the ship?
Yeah, well, yes, but that's only for his own safety, not for anyone else's.
Ryan, the end sequence has somebody approaching ominously over Finnick's body with a cape on. Any thoughts on who that might be? And your final thoughts on the episode and your rating?
The crazy fan theory, right, is that it's Boba Fett, but I can't. I hope not. I hope they don't go there. If they do again, I hope this is that's like a season 3 thing that they, or season 4 thing. But hopefully that's not. But it's probably Giancarlo Esposito's character. I think he's. I thought he was like the big bad of this season, and we haven't seen him at all. So I'm going to assume that it's his character, and that they're setting him up, and that we're kind of start to head towards the finale. But yeah, I mean, that's my only guess.
If you're going to take down a Mandalorian, what better than to send a Mandalorian? And it's been widely speculated, especially as of late, that Boba Fett is not really a Mandalorian, and neither was Jango. They simply wore the armor. So I think that this could be somebody from the guild that is a Mandalorian. It may not be Boba Fett. It might be. I'm hoping not, just like you. I hope that he does show up in the series at some point, but I hope it's not yet. I think it's too soon. I think you're going to burn up that bridge too quickly. And you can't have the Mandalorian and Boba Fett on a team together. So it's not like you can have multiple Mandalorians off running adventures. That just doesn't work. So yeah, if it's Boba Fett, that's going to be a little bit of a disappointment, but I'm sure, just speaking of this team of Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau, that they could put something together that would make me change my opinion 100%. But I think it's just another Mandalorian.
Ryan, your thoughts and your rating.
So let's see. I like this episode a lot. This is the one where you were maybe a little more down on episode 4. I think I'm not down on this one, but I just didn't love it. Again, I like the character work. I thought all the character, everybody that was cast great and did a good job. The one thing the show does do is, if any moment that Baby Yoda is not on screen, I'm nervous and anxious, and I almost want to fast forward through the show to find out what happened to Baby Yoda. So whatever the case, like, they've done an amazing job of really making me care, for a puppet. But yeah, I like the sequence. But again, I thought that Ming-Na Wen's character was made out to be this, badass, and she was kind of badass, but was again taken down a little too quickly. But at the same time, it had a lot of, there's great nostalgia, and I think they did an amazing job of, taking us back to Tatooine, taking us back to where it all began, and throwing us a bunch of bones. But not so much that it felt like it was overdone, but enough that it's like, oh, I know that, I know that, and really, getting goosebumps and really excited about what was going on. So I think, in some ways the episode benefits from the nostalgia factor, and I feel like it got the right look and the right feel. So I'm gonna give it a 7. It's a solid episode. I'm still loving the show. Still love Baby Yoda, and I'm still excited for where it's gonna go. But I don't think it quite lives up to the first 4 episodes for me.
We got to go back to Tatooine. That automatically runs the score up a little bit for me. We got to see dewbacks. We got to see Tusken Raiders. Score keeps going up. I enjoyed all that, but they didn't just beat into it. It's not like they would, let's go run out by the Lars homestead and go do pod racing. They did mention Mos Espa, but they didn't go there. So there's a lot of things that, to the Uber fan in me, really kind of drew some things out. But then there's some things that kind of made me go, really? This super assassin that worked for the Hutts and the Black Sun and all this other thing? Yeah, a novice first time out bounty hunter and one other guy can sneak up on her at night. You know, she doesn't have any idea about Beskar armor and that, you know, yeah, you shot him a couple of times, but he kept getting up and maybe there's something you need to do differently. So there was some things, yeah, that and the ship with the air brakes. That bothered me, obviously. We talked about that already. But that being said, it's a good show and it's a lot of fun and I enjoy it every time I watch it. And I've watched every episode minimum 3 times so far and most of them more than that. This is no exception. I've enjoyed it. I've had a good time. Is it as good as the previous episodes? No, but it's watchable. And, you know, the problem I'm running into now is my grading is now grading based on the Mandalorian scale versus just kind of general watching things. So if I give this a lower score, it's a lower score based on how great other episodes have been and not how it is compared to everything else on television. So we need to make sure that we understand that and that I'm giving it an 8, even though I love it more than just about anything else I've seen relatively recently on any other type of media.
This is probably my second favorite episode of the whole series. And I'm going to go ahead and give Gunslinger a straight 9 right now for many reasons. Not only did it get me the warm and fuzzies with the full Tatooine nostalgia snuggie, but it was also the reason why I started loving and wanting this show so bad. It's the time period that I'm most interested in. I don't care about the Old Republic. I don't care about the First Order, but I do care about this galaxy post-Empire, and that's what excites me the most about the show, was the premise and the time period. The battles were great, the co-stars were excellent and kind of weird and out there, and the portrayal was so predictable yet so fun, and I'm happy that Baby Yoda sees another day. One of the best episodes of the show so far, and we're getting to the point where these episodes are far surpassing some of the movies that Lucas did. I'm excited about the show. I can't wait to see what the last couple episodes turn out to be, and then I'm going to hold my breath straight to season 2.
And that's it. You made it to the end of another episode of the Cinik Radio podcast. I'm Igrihe, here with Cinik, who you can find at CINIKRADIO.com. Also, we had Ryan, who you can find at thejimwits.com, and Kim, who you can find at kmcartworks.com. Great artists. Go check out some really cool stuff. We'll be back next week with some new stuff for you. Probably some news as well. Send your crazy news stories, any comments, questions, and concerns to us at CINIKRADIO@gmail.com. Find us on the internet at CINIKRADIO.com. Look for us on Facebook at Facebook.com/CINIKRADIO. Find us on Twitter at CINIKRADIO. And find us on Instagram at Cinik Radio. You can also head over to tpublic.com, search for Cinik, CINIK, and get your own Cinik Radio podcast gear. T-shirts, mugs, cups, stickers, all the cool Cinik Radio podcast stuff you could possibly want. It'd help the show, and we would greatly appreciate it. Thanks again for all the love and support. Keep listening, sharing it with your friends, like, listen, and subscribe. And until next time, don't get captured.
Follow the podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and at CINIKRADIO.com. Available for download on iTunes.